What is up YouTube? Let's look at some tips to make your Psytrance bass punchier. So I'm working on a track for my progressive project and I noticed that the bass was sounding a little bit dull. It was lacking the punch that it needs. You know, specifically when you're working with the slower tempo, you've got more space. So with the bass and stuff, you've got more energy that you can sort of bring to the table. And in the track that I'm currently working on, the bass wasn't doing that. It was kind of lacking. So I figured this would be the perfect time to show you guys a couple of tips to enhance the punchiness of your bass lines. Let's dive in and have a look. So you can kind of get a comparison to the sort of before and after. I'm going to play you guys what the track sounds like so far and listen in particular to the bass line. Cool, so you get the idea. It's got the punch, but I find that it's sort of, the punch is kind of sitting in the wrong place, if that makes sense. I kind of like it to be a little bit lower in the frequency spectrum. So I'm going to show you guys the 3 tricks that I usually go through when looking for adding that sort of punch to my bass lines. So first things first, I like to go back to the source. You know, I like to assess, is the patch of the bass as good as it can be? And there's something that I like to do that I want to show you guys. Specifically if you're using plugins which don't have a sort of envelope section which you can draw in, I like to use a second envelope assigned to the cutoff as well, but using a much finer decay setting. So let's open up envelope number 4 on this Spire preset that I've got over here. And then let's set this filter to cutoff 1. Like it is here on envelope 3, cutoff 1. But with this one, the amount, we're not going to tweak as much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through the bass and I'm going to just tweak the setting here and I'm going to find the desired amount. See, this is pretty cool because it presents itself as a way to kind of alter the sound of the bass without changing the core sound, if that makes sense. You've kind of still got that main envelope controlling the cutoff, but this just kind of adds that little accent to the top of the sound. This is a pretty handy technique that I do use quite often. I actually sometimes use it in combination with the next 2 that we're going to dive into. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to tame it down a little bit and find the desired sound that we're looking for. Cool, that's good for now. So the second technique that I use quite widely is popping an envelope shaper onto the sound. Cubase actually has a really nice multiband envelope shaper built in. And what this allows you to do is change the sort of dynamic or transient response of different elements or different frequency bands in your source. So for example, if we want to create more of a sort of low end punch, then we would edit this section over here. And you've got the ability to solo each of the sections and listen to them individually to get the most out of that particular frequency band. So if you really wanting to get clinical, this is going to be the way to go. So like I said, I think that the punch of the sound is lying too far in the sort of mid-range, and I want to shift it kind of into the lower range and create more of a sort of attacky transient sound in the lower bands. So let's play the sound, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to boost this and change the length and release over here, but listen to how it changes the response of the sound while I'm tweaking it. So because obviously each of these processes that's happening on the multiband is attenuating the volume ever so slightly, what I like to do is just volume match each of the bands, or let's actually just bypass both of them so I can get a more accurate representation of how much each band is attenuating the sound. So let's check out our output level over here is minus 12.2. So then let's enable the first band and we see it goes up to quite a bit, 8.9. So then I want to reduce here on this output of this band until it matches the volume at which it was before. And then a lot of guys in the progressive genre, they like to pump the high end of the envelope shaper, and that adds that sort of high end pluck to the sound. Let's have a listen to what that does to the space that we're working on. So this last tip is actually more useful. Say, for example, if you've got your bass already sort of rendered to audio, or you're using a sample or something like that, and you want to attenuate the sort of transient of the sound without using like compression or something like that, you want to just overall attenuate the volume, then I use LFO tool, of course. And there's a couple of ways to set this up to get the most out of the sound. I'm going to show you the couple of sort of key ways that I use this plugin. So let me just disable multiband envelope shaper over here. And what we want to do is, let's just set this kind of shape, and then set this to 16th. So what we want to try to set up is that every bass note is re-triggered, and you can change the sort of envelope of the sound like this. So you're kind of recreating an envelope effect. So now obviously this is a little bit extreme, but now you can use this mix over here to dial it back a little bit so that you've got more control. So you're almost just creating, again, like that little accent on top of the sound itself. So you've actually got quite a lot of control over the sound when using it this way, but you're not limited to using it as a volume control, obviously. You can actually set up this cutoff over here to work in various ways. I'm going to show you a couple of cool tricks to use on bass lines. So let's just set this volume back to default, and now let's turn this cutoff on and leave it as a low pass. Now what we want to do is we want to set this up to tweak the cutoff of the sound so that we're recreating a filter envelope. So again, you've got a lot of control over the sound like this, and this is actually pretty cool. You know, say for example, again, if you don't have a plugin that's got the envelope curve that you can draw in, you can just load up LFO tool on it, and you've got all the filters that are built into Serum pretty much here in LFO tool anyway. So this is pretty cool. So I'm going to quickly show you another cool technique that I've seen floating around also regarding LFO tool and the use of a filter. So this isn't about creating a more punchy bass line, but I figured let me just throw it into this video as a little added extra. So let's set this to a high 12, turn the resonance down. Then we're going to want to turn this down to 1/4, so it's re-triggering on every kick basically. And now what we've done is we've set up a sort of sidechain technique, but instead of using volume to attenuate it, we're using a high pass cutoff. So every time the kick sounds, then a sort of EQ is cutting out all the lows, and it's sweeping down to this pattern that we've created over here. So listen to what effect this has. A big thanks to IDM Mag, proud supporters of the dance music scene and my channel. Awesome, I hope you found that helpful. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If there's other techniques that you use to create punchy bass lines, let me know. Maybe I can learn something in those comments. As always, if you like what I do and you want to support me, head on over to my Patreon, check out the different pledges I've got for you there. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. See you guys next time.